किसी दूसरे में रिकॉर्डिंग होगा, ऐसा नहीं।
Number one, the vinyl condition, the inflammation that is called pyelonephritis. See, this pyelonephritis is, it is divided into two parts, right? Pyelonitis and posthitis, right? So here we can see that it is divided into two parts, pyelonitis plus posthitis, right? So what is pyelonitis? Pyelonitis is infection of the glans penis, right? So when we are seeing infection of the glans penis, that is called pyelonitis. What is posthitis? When prepuce has been inflamed, right? So I understood pyelonitis is the glans penis and posthitis is the prepuce, the foreskin, right? So skin inflammation is posthitis and the glans penis is the pyelonitis, right? What are the infections we can expect? The simple, because they are, they are moist area, so they will be having fungal infection or bacterial infection because of the moistness and the dampness, right? So fungal and bacterial infection is common. Posthitis, infection of the prepuce, the skin. The skin is candida or maybe the sexually transmitted gonorrhea, right? So candida and gonorrhea, right? And this is all, as I have said, because of the collected substances called smegma. What is the smegma? It's a debris of squamous cells and inflammatory cells, right? So these are the debris of the squamous cells and inflammatory cells which will be enclosed in the skin, right, and the foreskin of the penis, right? So that is the smegma, and smegma is the reason for pyelonoposthitis, right? Which means pyelonitis plus posthitis. Infection of the glans penis, pyelonitis, infection of the prepuce, posthitis, posthitis, right? What is the problem with this thing? Right? Why we should be worried about this kind of patient? Because if it is going like this, right, they have increased risk of carcinoma. You remember the first chapter, right? All these things are interrelated. You remember in the first chapter what I have said, the basic etiology of all the lesion in the pathology or in all the pathological lesion is the free radical, right? So because of the inflammatory cells, free radical will be formed. Free radical will be consistently causing damage. See, when they are causing inflammation for 1 to 2 days and they are subsiding forever, that is not a harmful thing. But when there is a consistent inflammation, right? When there is a consistent inflammation, there will be consistent free radical, and there will be consistent damage of the nuclei also, and that will be the reason for the carcinoma development, right? So pyelonoposthitis is a risk for the development of carcinoma if it is not taken care of, right? Second thing is the penile tumor. In penile tumor, we will see two important tumors. There is a benign and there is a malignant. Right. So benign tumor is condyloma acuminata. Condyloma acuminata is lesion caused by human papilloma virus. Right. So condyloma acuminata is actually a papilloma. Remember, actually it is a papilloma caused by human papilloma virus. And which human papilloma virus we have discussed this in detail, right? 6 and 11. Right. You remember 6 and 11. So these are papilloma benign tumor. Right. So condyloma acuminata is HPV induced benign tumor. Malignancy is carcinoma in situ, where you already have discussed in your place. Basement membrane will be intact, and here basement membrane will be ruptured. So that is the only difference. So carcinoma in situ and invasive carcinoma, these are the two things, right? So now we can see benign tumor, we are dividing them into two parts, benign and malignant. Benign is condyloma acuminata, which is caused by human papilloma virus. That is why it is also called as benign papilloma, or also known as venereal wart. So remember, this is also known as condyloma acuminata. Condyloma acuminata is also known as venereal warts, right? So these things also we should remember, right? So as I have told you, condyloma acuminata is a venereal wart caused by HPV 6 and 11, sessile and papillary projection. So when you are going to see the lesion, when you are going to see the lesion, suppose this is the penile shaft, and you are going to see this wart, so they will be like this small sessile, like this, like a small sessile, papillary projection. Sessile. So sessile, there is no stalk, and papillary, right? There is so many infolding, so that is papillary infolding or papillary projection, sessile and papillary projections. And on microscopic examination, why there is a papillary projection? Because of the skin hyperplasia. So there will be a hyperplastic squamous epithelial cells, right? And they will be forming papillae, which will be corresponding to this, like this. They will be forming papillae like this, right? So now that is how you are going to see. Here you are seeing the gross specimen, and here you are seeing the microscopic examination, where we can see the papillae. Because of the squamous cell hyperplasia, that is the reason for the papillary projections on the surface, right? And what is the most characteristic? See, papillary projection can be seen in various conditions. How I will be knowing that it is a HPV 611? By seeing the feature of chyliocytosis. What is chyliocytosis? Chyliocytosis, larger cell, larger hyperchromatic nucleus, and perinuclear halo. Now understood? So this is very important, right? Chyliocytosis is larger cell, larger hyperchromatic nucleus, and perinuclear halo. If you see the cell which I have made here, can you see this is the normal cell, right? Nucleus is very small. Now you can see this is the chyliocyte, K for chyliocyte, right? Nucleus is bigger one and hyperchromatic, and you can notice there is a perinuclear halo. So this is the chyliocytic change, right? So this is the chyliocytic change where we are seeing here, right? Chyliocytosis, larger cell, hyperchromatic nucleus, and perinuclear halo, right? Which will be seen in any HPV inflammation, and it will be very prominently seen in the condyloma acuminata, right? So now you can see this is the picture. This is the gross finding, right? This is the gross finding of the condyloma acuminata. So you can see these are all sessile lesion, right? These are all, right? You can see all these are sessile papillary excretions, right? So what I have shown you in the picture, now we can see in the gross picture or clinical presentation, sessile and papillary projections, right? So sessile and papillary projections are visible here, right? So that is the gross specimen of the condyloma acuminata. So this is the condyloma acuminata, right? The condyloma acuminata, which is also called as venereal warts, right? So that is how it will be looking. Warts will be looking like this at every place. Genital area also, and when they will be involving the hands and extremities, then also it will be, or other skin areas also, it will be looking the same manner, right? And this is the microscopic examination of the condyloma acuminata. Right, microscopic examination. Now you can see there are so many cells. I'm just pointing some of them. You can notice these big cells. Can you see this big cell? Or you can notice these big cells. Right, in comparison to the normal cells. We see normal cells will be like this. Right, so now you can see these are the chyliocytes. These are the numerous chyliocytic cells are there. These are all chyliocytic cells. These are all chyliocytic cells. Right, so this is called chyliocytic change. Right, so now you understood chyliocytic change. What is the chyliocytic change? Larger cell, larger hyperchromatic nuclei, and perinuclear halo. Right, so now you understood chyliocytic change. What is this? It's a larger cell, larger hyperchromatic nuclei. Larger hyperchromatic nuclei we are seeing, and there is a perinuclear halo. Perinuclear halo. So that is how chyliocytosis will be appreciated. So these are the three important points about the chyliocytic changes. We have to remember, right? Larger cell, hyperchromatic nucleus, perinuclear halo. That is suggestive of chyliocytic change. And chyliocytic change, always keep that in mind. Chyliocytic changes, if I want to say that in general, please remember it is associated with human papillomavirus infection, right? Wherever it is in female, male, anywhere, whenever you are seeing chyliocytic change on the histopathology, first thought will be the human papillomavirus. Next thought will be to differentiate it from the benign tumor and from the malignancies, right? So first thought will be the human papillomavirus, right? Now, carcinoma in situ. So when penile carcinoma in situ we are going to talk about, so we should remember 611 was benign papilloma. You remember 611 was benign papilloma, and 1618 is associated with the carcinoma, right? And out of these things, always remember this was the question in the NEET PG exam. HPV 16 is most commonly as well as most strongly associated with, right? Most commonly as well as most strongly associated with the squamous cell carcinoma, right? So this point we have to keep in mind, right? This point we have to keep in mind. It is HPV is most commonly as well as most strongly associated with squamous cell carcinoma. So actually it is in situ. So I think you remember what was the finding we have seen in the neoplasia. In situ means dysplasia is involving entire thickness of the epithelium and basement membrane is intact, right? So you remember that dysplasia is involving entire thickness of the epithelium, dysplasia is involving entire thickness of the epithelium and basement membrane is intact. That is called as carcinoma in situ, right? So when you are going to see the gross examination of the carcinoma in situ, how it will be looking like? Red erythematous plaque, right? I'll show you the picture also. So this is like this, red erythematous plaque. You can see here, this is the red erythematous plaque, right? So this red erythematous plaque, we are saying that is the carcinoma in situ on the cross examination. And remember, this red erythematous plaque is also known as Bowen's disease. So examiner can ask you, penile Bowen's disease. Penile Bowen's disease is the red erythematous plaque, and what is this? It is the carcinoma in situ, right? It is the carcinoma in situ, right? So please do remember this point. Bowen's disease is a carcinoma in situ, red erythematous plaque, right? When they are involving prepuce, they are called as erythroplasia of Barrett, right? And they may involve skin as a part of carcinoma in situ. So already we are discussing that they are in situ carcinoma in situ. Like why we are worried about this Bowen's disease or erythematous plaque or erythroplasia of Barrett, right? All these things are same. They are all carcinoma in situ. So why we are worried? Because they are having a risk for invasive carcinoma. So there will be increased risk for the invasive carcinoma, right? So now understood. Red erythematous plaque will be seen at the carcinoma in situ, which is also known as Bowen's disease when they are involving penis or penile skin, and when they are involving prepuce, they are also called as erythroplasia of Barrett, right? So erythroplasia of Barrett and Bowen's disease are synonym to each other, right? Grossly red erythematous plaque problem, risk for the invasive carcinoma, right? And now you can see here that red erythematous plaque, which is also known as Bowen's disease. That's what I said. They are synonymous. Bowen's disease of the penis or erythroplasia of the Barrett, they are sharply demarcated erythematous or grayish white plaques on the shaft of the penis, right? So basic thing is, which examiner ask you, is it a risk for the penile cancer? Answer will be yes, it is a risk for invasive penile cancer because this itself is a in situ. This itself is a carcinoma in situ, but it can be going for the invasive carcinoma response, right? And now you can see this is the Bowen's disease of the penis. Can you see this? What I have written, Bowen's disease of the penis, right? And now can you see here what you're seeing? Can you tell me what you're seeing in this picture? Can you tell me what you're noticing from here to here? Anybody? Anybody? Can you tell me? Can you see this? The lower area where I'm marking with the blue arrow. These are all basement membrane. And how is the basement membrane? It is intact. And now look at the cells. Look at all these cells. Can you see all these cells? How are all these cells? Is it organized parallel to each other or they're haphazard? Can you see some of them are round, some of them are vertical, and you can some of them they're very hyperchromatic nuclei. Hyperchromatic nuclei at the base, right? And you can see here there is a different kind of chromatin arrangement of the nucleus of the cells. What is this? All these are the dysplastic cells. All these are dysplastic cell or dysplasia, right? So dysplastic cells are through and through. So remember, dysplastic cells are present from the top to the bottom. So dysplastic cells are involving entire epithelium. They are involving entire epithelium of the penis, right? And basement membrane is intact. So this is called Bowen's disease of the penis. So can I say that Bowen's disease of the penis is the carcinoma in situ? Yes or no? Yes or no? Can I say Bowen's disease is a carcinoma in situ? Yes. So that is what I was telling you. Yes, it is a carcinoma in situ, right? Dysplastic cells are involving entire thickness of the epithelium. Here you can see entire thickness of the epithelium showing dysplastic cells, and if you look at the lower basement membrane is intact. So this is the Bowen's disease of the penis, carcinoma in situ, risk for invasive carcinoma, right? How will be invasive carcinoma? So as already I have told you, invasive carcinoma of the penis is associated with 16 and 18. 16 is most commonly associated, and just add on here that not only most commonly, they are also most strongly associated with the most strongly associated. So because these were the questions, right? Either examiner will use the language most commonly or most strongly, both will be same, answer will be 16, right? Dysplastic cells are here also. But what is the difference? Basement membrane has been damaged. And after the basement membrane damage, what will happen? Tumor cells will be going inside the stroma. So tumor cells are infiltrating underlying stroma. So that is the feature of invasive, right? So this is how we describe invasive carcinoma, right? So now it is invasive carcinoma because basement membrane has been damaged, right? So cross finding, when you are going to see the penile cancer, especially that OPD and all patient will be coming and you are going to examine them. So that will be one characteristic thing. Ulceroproliferative lesion, right? There will be ulceroproliferative lesion, or sometimes we also describe them as a cauliflower-like appearance. Cauliflower-like appearance. So cauliflower-like appearance when you are going to see because of the fungating lesion, not the fungus infection. Don't think that fungus infection. Fungation is that ulceroproliferation. Because of the proliferation, these abnormal tumor cells will be looking like a nodule of the cauliflower. That is why ulceroproliferative lesion resembling like a cauliflower involving the shaft of the penis. That is the suggestive of malignant squamous cell cancer. So this will be suggestive of this kind of explanation is suggestive of malignant squamous cell carcinoma, right? And when you will take the section, and then you will see that tumor cells are made up of both keratinized and non-keratinized malignant squamous cell. So keratin will be present also. Some cells keratin will be absent also, right? So now you can see this is the typical picture. You can see this is the typical picture of the penile shaft, right? Here it is the resection margin. Don't look at that. Here this is the skin, normal skin, and now you can see the tumor mass is here, right? So this is the tumor mass. This is the tumor mass, and this is the area of hemorrhage, right? Dark color, right? So that is how you can see this is the ulceroproliferative cauliflower-like mass, right? So this is the ulceroproliferative cauliflower-like mass, and this is the gross description of the malignant squamous cell carcinoma, right? So that is how you have to identify. These are the typical things when you will be going to the posting and all. You will be seeing all these cases very common, right? So it's not very rare thing, right? You will be very commonly seeing in the surgical posting, especially surgical posting, not in the medicine ward. Surgical posting, you are going to see all these cases more, right? When we will take the section from these malignant squamous cell cancer, and suppose I'm showing you, let's imagine this green line not visible. Which line I should use? Suppose this is the line which I'm making. I'm just showing you the highlighter also. This is the area which is the basement membrane, right? This is the basement membrane. This is the area where the basement membrane, above is the epidermis and below is the, see, this is the all basement membrane. This is all basement membrane running through like this, right? But you cannot see the entire thing. I'm just giving you hypothetical knowledge because it has been damaged. It has been damaged, and you can see there are cells coming out. You can see these are the cells. Can you notice these group of cells and these group of cells? I'll just make it. These group of cells, and these group of cells which I have marked with the green color. Can you notice? And can you tell me what are these things? Tumor cell only, right? But can you tell me? Can you see this? These tumor cells are having normal eosinophilia. So these are non-keratinized. Non-keratinized squamous cells. All these are malignant only, right? So malignant, non-keratinized. And if you look at these cells, they are looking more brightly eosinophilic. Huh? So why they are brightly eosinophilic? Because these are keratinized squamous cells. Keratinized squamous cells. So as I said, keratinized and non-keratinized squamous cells will be seen in the histopathology of the malignant squamous cell, and where they are infiltrating underlying stroma. So this is the area which we are seeing is called stroma. So stromal invasion is present, right? These are all infiltrating into the stroma. They are all infiltrating into the stroma. Stromal invasion is present. So that means it is an invasive cancer, correct? So now understood. So what I'm showing you in this diagram, it's a malignant squamous cell. You can see tumor cells are here also. These are also tumor cells, right? But if there is no penetration of the basement membrane, then we will be calling them dysplastic cell. But now you can see these tumor cells are not damaging the basement membrane and now coming underlying the stroma. So these are the keratinized, hypereosinophilic, non-keratinized, right? And this area is called stromal area. So they are infiltrating into the stromal area. So this is the invasive squamous cell cancer of the penis, right? Now coming to the next thing is the testicular involvement, right? Testicular involvement we are going to discuss is the cryptorchidism, one of the important reason or important thing which you will be again seeing very commonly in the surgery posting, right? So what is the meaning of cryptorchidism? Cryptorchidism is failure of testicular descent into scrotum, right? So failure of testicular descent into scrotum. Usually during the development you would have read in the embryology that testicular development they travel from the inguinal canal and then they'll be reaching to the scrotal areas, right? So this testicular development, testicular descent into the scrotum is a normal thing, and when it is having failure, that is called as cryptorchidism. So cryptorchidism has two components, as I said, inguinal and abdominal. So either they will be remaining in the abdomen or they will be in somewhere in the inguinal canal. They are not coming into the testis. So inguinal or abdominal, there are two components, which is more common. So most common site for cryptorchidism is inguinal. Most common site of cryptorchidism is inguinal. And inguinal, as I said, inguinal, abdominal, there are two components, and they are controlled by different hormones. Inguinal is controlled by androgens, right? And abdominal, undescended is controlled by Mullerian inhibiting substances. So now please remember this point. Inguinal cryptorchidism is due to the androgen, and abdominal is due to the Mullerian inhibiting substances. These are very important things because if you are reading some Indian books and all, you will not be finding all these things. These are given in the Robbins one, right? So please remember these important points, right? Abdominal or inguinal, which is most common, controlled by androgen. Abdominal less common, controlled by Mullerian inhibiting substances, right? So if there is no descent of the testis, what will be the problem? If there is no descent of the testis, then what is the problem? Why we are worried about this patient? Can you tell me? Infertility, yes. So why they will be having infertility? Why they will be having infertility? Due to androgen or androgen deficiency. No, this is because of the androgen deficiency. This is the deficiency. Because of the deficiency, androgens are required for the moment, right? So if it is not present, then they will not be going. Same way here also. Deficiencies. These are all deficiencies, right? The problem here, cryptorchidism, why we are so worried? Because they are having risk for two things. First of all, if you remember in plus 2 also we used to study that why testis is not inside the body, why there is a separate scrotum, because of the temperature difference of 2 degrees Celsius, and that temperature difference is required for the proper spermatogenesis, right? Understood? So if there is no if there is no temperature maintenance and if they are present within the body, what will happen? There will be no spermatogenesis and there will be a testicular atrophy. So remember, have an increased risk for the testicular atrophy and germ cell tumor. So these are the two most worrisome problem with the cryptorchidism, right? So whenever we are seeing a cryptorchid testis, what is the problem? Testicular atrophy and germ cell tumor. Testicular atrophy and germ cell tumor. And microscopic examination, what we are going to see, there will be hyalinization and thickening of the basement membrane of the seminiferous tubule. I'll show you the picture also. Normally seminiferous tubule will be very thin, right? Even it will be not appreciable. But in case of cryptorchidism or in case of atrophy, because atrophy is the constant finding of the cryptorchidism. Remember, atrophy is the constant finding of the cryptorchidism. So when atrophy you are seeing, the thickening of the basement membrane of seminiferous tubule will be one constant finding. And there will be no spermatogenesis, as I said, because of the temperature difference. And in this process, that interstitial Leydig cells are not affected. Leydig cells are not affected. So Leydig cells are spared. And because of all these things are damaged, no spermatogenesis, hyalinization, so Leydig cells are spared. So sometimes this sparing of the Leydig cells will make them prominent. And the examiner will be asking you a question that Leydig cell prominence is seen in. So remember, Leydig cell prominence had been asked many times in the AIIMS exam. Leydig cells prominence is seen in the cryptorchidism. Either examiner will be giving you this option or examiner may give rise to testicular atrophy. So please remember this point. Basically, they had asked question like this: testicular atrophy, what is the characteristic finding? Leydig cell prominence. Cryptorchidism, Leydig cell prominence. Right? No, it's not first slide. Shanti, you are late in the class. It's not first slide. It's the 19th slide. But don't worry. You can see this will be recorded now. So here, as I was telling you, if you look at the testicular biopsy, you can see there is a Leydig cell. You can see there is a first I show you. This is the entire seminiferous tubule, right? And in seminiferous tubule, you can notice this is the thin basement membrane, which is having covering of the. These are the eosinophilic color is the smooth muscles over the basement membrane, right? And then you can notice these are the Sertoli cells, right? And then you can see these are the spermatogonia, right? Spermatogonia is getting converted into primary spermatocyte, right? And then primary spermatocyte into small spermatid, which will be again converted into the sperm. That is how spermatogenesis will be going on. That is how spermatogenesis will be going on. Today it was 4 o'clock. I think today and day before yesterday was 4 o'clock. I think tomorrow onwards it will be again by 4:30. Today only it was by 4 o'clock. I think by time you might have confused, right? Okay. But one message might be going to your mobile, right? Don't worry, don't say sorry. Why you are saying sorry to me? I told you so many times. Right? So basement membrane, smooth muscles, all these things are clearly normally seen in normal testis, right? So you can see Leydig cells are here also. Can you notice here? How is the seminiferous tubule? Can you notice how is the basement membrane? Now you can see there is a eosinophilic area. You can notice this is the very eosinophilic, right? Which I'm on. Right? So this is called hyalinization or thickening of the basement membrane. So what I'm showing you, it is hyalinization and thickening of basement membrane of seminiferous tubule. Right? So this is the seminiferous tubule. This is the seminiferous tubule. See here, there are so many sperms. Even at this color, you cannot see much of them. Right? There's no testicular development, no spermatogenesis. Right? So we can see that in this, we are not seeing any spermatogenesis. No spermatogenesis. Right? So there is no spermatogenesis. Right? Now look at this area. Look at this area. Can you see this area? That interstitial Leydig cell, they're not affected. Interstitial Leydig cells are not affected. And now they're looking so much high in quantity because there is atrophy of the seminiferous tubule. Right? So this is called Leydig cell prominence. Right? So this is what I was telling you. Because of the atrophy of the seminiferous tubule, we call them as a Leydig cell prominence. So this is called as Leydig cell prominence, right? So this finding you will see in the both cryptorchidism, and it will be also seen in the testicular atrophy. So this point we have to keep in mind, right? So cryptorchidism or testicular atrophy, you are going to see all these findings. So what are these findings? So please remember, Leydig cell prominence, hyalinization and thickening of the basement membrane, and there will be no spermatogenesis, right? So that is the cryptorchid testis. And what is the problem? Problem is atrophy, no spermatogenesis, infertility, and the biggest problem is the cancer. Biggest problem is the germ cell tumor of the testis. So this is the, as a clinician, what is the biggest headache? Biggest headache is the germ cell tumor, right? Now coming to this short introduction to the inflammation of the testis, right? Inflammation of the testis is very rare because of the testis is having, again the blood barrier with the tunica albuginea, but sometimes they will be having inflammation. So that is why testicular inflammation is called as orchitis, and epididymitis is epididymis involvement, right? So epididymis involvement is more common, orchitis is less common or rare. So orchitis is less common. So please remember this point, orchitis is less common because of the tunica albuginea, which is preventing any kind of inflammation. So what is more commonly seen? Epididymitis is more commonly seen, right? Epididymis inflammation is more common. So please remember, epididymis, orchitis, both can be seen, but epididymitis is more common. But here we have to remember this point. See, when we are talking about the inflammation of the testis, three inflammation which examiner asks in the viva also is the number one is the TB. Number two is syphilis. Number three is mumps. Here I'll just tell you, the TB and syphilis is very commonly asked question in the exam. What examiner asks you in the viva or in your clinic question was they will be asking, right? Who will be starting from the epididymis? So remember, TB starts in the epididymis and then they will involve the testis. But syphilis starts from the testis and then they will be involving epididymis. That is the point you have to remember. The examiner will be asking you this question. Right? It is a very favorite question of the examiner. Right? TB will start from the epididymis and then they are going to involve the testis. Whereas syphilis will is first involved in the testis and then they will be going for the epididymis. So this sequence examiner asks, right? So TB, epididymis to testis. Right? Syphilis, testis, then epididymis. Right? Mumps are very rare in pediatric age group, common in the adults. And this was the question in the older NEET exam, that after parotid infection, because first they will be involving parotid. After parotid infection, after how many days they are going to involve testis? So remember, answer will be 1 week. That is the answer. Right? So that is the answer. So 1 week duration will be from the parotid to the testicular involvement. Mumps, orchitis, parotid to testicular involvement takes 1 week of the incubation period. Right? Done. Now, coming to the most important area where examiner will be asking you question in your, in your surgery exam also and in your pathology exam also. Theory, practical, all questions will be coming from this area. Testicular tumors. Right? And according to the WHO, I'm just making it more simpler way. Germ cell tumors and sex cord stromal tumor. There are two types of testicular tumor. Germ cell tumor and sex cord stromal tumor. Germ cell tumor is again divided into three: seminoma, spermatocytic seminoma, and non-seminoma. Please remember this entity because many of us we don't know that seminoma, then spermatocytic seminoma, and then non-seminoma. Right? So spermatocytic seminoma is different from the seminoma. Remember this point. Don't think that only the name is different. No, spermatocytic seminoma both are different. Right? Seminoma they are having poor prognosis. The spermatocytic seminoma is having very good prognosis. Right? Non-seminoma condition. Non-seminoma again we are dividing them into the four types: embryonal carcinoma, yolk sac tumor, teratoma, and choriocarcinoma. Right? So now you can see that how we are dividing germ cell tumor into three parts: seminoma, spermatocytic seminoma, and non-seminoma. So non-seminoma into the four parts: embryonal carcinoma, yolk sac tumor, teratoma, and choriocarcinoma. Sex cord stromal tumor. Sex cord stromal tumor are Sertoli cell tumor and Leydig cell tumor. So these are two important tumors we have to remember: Sertoli and Leydig cell tumor. Right? Here the most important thing as a clinician or as a good physician, we must know that what is the consequences of these two tumors. Germ cell tumors are mostly malignant. Remember this. If you are dealing with a germ cell tumor, what should be going on in your mind? That mostly it will be malignant. Right? So that time you should not say to the patient, no, your prognosis is good, don't worry, we will be correcting all these things. Never say like this. So that is why we learn this thing. Right? Why to assure somebody unnecessary and false assurance will be very harmful, especially nowadays, right? Because patients immediately they will go to the consumer court if they feel something wrong has happened to them. So sex cord stromal tumor. Second thing is the sex cord stromal tumor is benign. See, we have divided germ cell tumor and sex cord stromal tumor. Mostly germ cell tumors are malignant, but sex cord tumors are mostly benign. So this point we have to remember, right? So these are very solid point we have to keep in mind. And examiner also asking the MCQ. Mostly germ cell tumors are malignant, true. Mostly sex cord stromal tumors are benign, true. Right? Now understood? Now let's start one by one. Germ cell tumor. First we are starting from the germ cell tumor. So as I have told you, mostly they are malignant, and usually they will be affecting age group of 20 to 40 years. Right? Usually they will be affecting age group of the 20 to 40 years. Right? And most common presentation, whenever we are going to see, in general I will tell you, usually, in general I'm not talking about this testicular, in general tumors are painless mass. Very rarely they will be painful, right? That is why we are, you need not remember age group, right? Age group will be only for certain tumor where you have to use the differential diagnosis calculation. That time it will be helpful. You need not to mark up. Automatically you will come to know that. What you need to remember, what you don't need to do. Don't remember each and everything. I'm telling you, don't try to remember each and everything while you are going through the province, especially if you are in second MBBS, because it's a very vast. And if you try to remember each and everything, what will happen? You'll be very disappointed, right? And you are not able to cover up anything. So try to understand. See, when you are reading Robbins now, what will be your target? Your target should be heading, subheading, and important thing. Don't try to remember genes in the first go. That there are so many genes. So if you started reading genes and you started remembering them, then it's gone. Even though examiner is asking an exam, please remember my words. With the time, you will come to know that this gene is important, this gene is not important. I'm telling you, because it's my personal experience. I'm teaching. I don't teach anything which is not required, right? So I don't teach all those things because I know that will be unnecessary consumption of your energy and your brain also, right? So painless testicular mass, you will automatically come to know that when you are going to be posting now, and you will be seeing the seminoma patient will be 25 year, 30 year, 25 year, 30 year. So automatically all these things will be imbibed into your mind that okay, 20 to 40 years seminoma will be there, right? Like that you'll be remembering. That is why there are posting. Why medicine has been given the posting. You in MBA, if you're doing or law, you're not going to the court and see the hearings every time, right? Now they are making like that thing. Now they're also making them clinical. But our clinics is because of to reinforce all these things in our mind so that we can correlate each and everything. When you'll be going to be posting, then you'll be correlating all things together. Just simply reading, you cannot correlate. I can assure you. By simply teaching or reading, you cannot correlate until unless you see the patient and you come back again and you read it again. And when you are going to see this multiple times in small segments, then you will know. Right. So coming to the germ cell tumor, painless testicular mass. Right. Don't worry, this will be coming. Corona will be gone. I think. Hopefully, we are all praying that vaccine should come. Even I am feeling so much inhibited. Right. As if I'm enclosed inside a room and we're not doing anything proper. Right. So painless testicular mass is the most common presentation. Risk factor is the cryptorchidism. See, cryptorchidism, as I have told you, it's a very big risk for the germ cell tumor. You remember inguinal and abdominal. Right. Inguinal was more common, but who is more dangerous? who is more dangerous? Abdominal is more dangerous. Please remember, which cryptorchidism is more commonly associated with germ cell tumor? So remember, abdominal type of cryptorchidism is more commonly associated with the germ cell tumor. I can suggest you one thing, right? I'll just tell you, this is my advice, right? It is not the replacement of the live things, right? If you are going to be posting and seeing the patient, that is the live thing. But I can suggest you, there are so many YouTube channels also, right? Means YouTube channel, the foreign YouTube channel, where they will be showing the clinical science. So you can type YouTube, right? Clinical science and symptoms. So they will be showing you all those things. So you can go through all those things. Or clinical examination. Many of the lectures are also available at Academy for the clinical examination. You can go through with those things, right? That will help you a lot, right? Risk factors, cryptorchidism, as I have told you, most commonly abdominal type. Then testicular dysgenesis syndrome. What is testicular dysgenesis syndrome? It consists of three things, right? It consists of three things: cryptorchidism, hypospadias, poor sperm quality. So these three things together are called as testicular dysgenesis syndrome, right? So when you're going to expect this testicular dysgenesis syndrome in a farmer, right? In a farmer who are doing the farming, where they are using the pesticides, or a patient who is given estrogen treatment, right? So now understood, pesticides and estrogen exposure is also a risk for the germ cell tumor. How pesticides and estrogen can cause testicular dysgenesis syndrome, which can lead to the cryptorchidism and can cause the can cause the germ cell tumor, right? So now understood. So this is testicular dysgenesis syndrome in toto, right? This is the testicular dysgenesis syndrome in toto, which is consisting of cryptorchidism, hypospadias, and poor sperm quality, and they are usually associated with the pesticide exposure and estrogen exposure, right? Here, what we need to remember, like other tumors, like carcinoma in situ. So, intratubular germ cell neoplasia is a carcinoma in situ-like condition. That is very important. Intratubular germ cell neoplasia, intratubular germ cell neoplasia, ITGCN. Right, ITGCN is a carcinoma in situ-like condition. And what is the clinical significance? These are the origin for the germ cell tumor. Nearly all the germ cell tumors will be arising from the intratubular germ cell tumor, except, and these are very important MCQs, right? Except for the three tumors. What are these three tumors? Spermatocytic tumor, spermatocytic seminoma, Yolk sac tumor, and keratoma. So these are the three important tumors which are not associated with ITGCM, which are not associated with the carcinoma in situ. The rest others like seminoma, embryonal carcinoma, choriocarcinoma, right? All these things are associated with the intratubular germ cell neoplasia, right? Genetics of the germ cell tumor is very important. Question came in previous year NEET and DLP exam. c-KIT mutation, already we have read so many times. In neoplasia also we have read c-KIT mutation, growth factor receptor, right? Transcription factors. Transcription factors are genetic factors which are also known as molecular markers for the germ cell tumor. Remember, I'm talking about germ cell tumor. I'm not talking about seminoma. I'm talking about germ cell tumor. c-KIT. Transcription factors. What are these transcription factors? Two important transcription factors which you need to remember is OCT3, OCT4, and NanoG. Right, so two groups, OCT3 and OCT4, different. Right, OCT3 is one, and OCT4 is second one, and then NanoG. So these are the transcription factors which are also considered as the molecular marker of the germ cell tumors. Right, molecular marker of the germ cell tumor, and remember they are also associated with the isochromosome 12p. You remember when I was discussing in genetics isochromosome, right? When the chromosome is dividing perpendicular to the normal division, then there is the isochromosome formation. That time I told you isochromosomes are associated with the medulloblastoma. You remember isochromosome 17q. Then I'm coming to the isochromosome of the germ cell tumors. Germ cell tumors, whether it is of ovary or the testis, both are associated with the isochromosome 12p. Right. So this point we have to keep in mind. This can be a definite future question in exam. Right. They are same only. Tumor markers are same. Only the thing is we are getting advanced. That's all. Molecular marker, for example, if you are asking, say you are seeing AFP in the blood, right? AFP is the enzyme. But when you are taking the liquid biopsy, remember liquid biopsy in the neoplasia topic I have taught you. Liquid biopsy if you are taking and you are going for the PCR analysis. Enzyme you can do with the simple spectrophoresis and all these things, right? But when you are going for PCR analysis for the blood of some infection, and suddenly you see that this patient PCR analysis, I'm finding that there is a OCT3, OCT4. So that is the molecular markers, right? So you have to use the high-fi things, and these are the molecular level things. It can be present in the blood only, right? By liquid biopsy, you can identify all these things. That is the gain of liquid biopsy, right? So OCT3, OCT4, NanoG, these are all the transcription factors. These are the genes. They are the same tumor markers. Only thing is they are more advanced tumor markers and they are more specific than the other blood tumor marker or serum tumor markers, right? Fine. Seminoma versus non-seminoma, right? Which one is having better prognosis? Remember, seminoma is having better prognosis. Seminoma is having more radio sensitivity. But when we talk about the non-seminoma condition, they are having more metastasis, more aggressive, and radio resistant, right? So these are the things you have to keep in mind. More metastasis, more aggressive, more radio resistant, right? So non-seminoma is more metastasis, more aggressive, and more radio resistant. So seminomas are better than non-seminomas. Now, in this seminoma, as I have told you, spermatocytic seminoma is different, right? So now you can see that what is the difference. Spermatocytic seminoma. This was the question in the NEET 2017. Which of the following will be having good prognosis? Right? Seminoma, spermatocytic seminoma, Yolk sac tumor, or choriocarcinoma. Like that examiner had asked the question. So please remember, why is spermatocytic seminoma will be having good prognosis? This was the DLP question also. In which of the following germ cell tumor you will not see the metastasis? Seminoma, choriocarcinoma, teratoma, and spermatocytic seminoma. So now understood, spermatocytic seminoma is having best prognosis. Why? Because of no metastasis. That was the question. Because of metastasis. That was the question in the exam. Right? Best prognosis, and they are radio sensitive. So these are the important point about the spermatocytic seminoma. And remember, this was the question in NEET PG 2016 and DNP 2017. So you don't think that you have not read it or it's very mildly given, so it is not been asked. It is very commonly asked question here. So please remember, out of all the germ cell tumor, spermatocytic seminoma, they carry the best prognosis, right? Because of the no metastasis and more radio sensitivity. Right. Now we'll study about the seminoma first. As I have told you, seminoma is a malignant tumor of the germ cells, right? So they are malignant tumor, number one, and they will be involving 15 to 40 years. So that age group 20 to 40 years will be germ cell tumor, right? What will be the gross finding? Gross finding will be well circumscribed. So when you are going to see the seminoma, they will be having well circumscribed and they will be having capsule, right? And then bulging out tumor masses. So when you are going to see the tumor masses, they will be bulging out like this, right? And between the tumor masses, you will be seeing the fibrous septa is dividing, right? So like this, right? So this was the question which came in 2017 or 18 AIMS exam also, right? The gross picture of the seminoma was given. So you can see these are the tumor mass which is bulging out, right? Tumor mass which is bulging out, and these are the fibrous septa. Right, so that's what it has been given here. Well circumscribed, encapsulated because of the capsulation they are well circumscribed, right? Bulging out because they're bulging, fleshy mass bulging out, and this is because of fibrous septa. Because fibrous septa is dividing, or you can say compressing them. That is why the remaining areas are bulging, or between areas or mid areas are bulging like this. Right, microscopic examination, you are going to see the diffuse sheets and the nests of the tumor cells. Right, so sheets and nests of the tumor cells will be like this. Sheets, these are the sheets or nests of the tumor cell, right? Sheets and nests of the tumor cell. Large round tumor cell with nucleus and prominent nuclei. Suppose actually I made with wrong thing. These are the large tumor cells with nucleus, right? Nucleus also. No, it is not a very it's not very strict rule that malignancy will be not encapsulated. Basal cell carcinoma is also encapsulated, right? So it's not like that they will be infiltrating only, right? That is the nature of the tumor. Because the testicular mass, the tunica albuginea is very hardly permeable by them, right? So you can see these tumor mass cells are there, nucleus are big, and they will be having very prominent nucleoli. Prominent nucleoli. So you can see prominent nucleoli. Prominent nucleoli, right? And you can see cytoplasmic clearing because of the glycogen. Because of the glycogen, there will be a cytoplasmic clearing, right? And in between, you will see the fibrous septa. Right. In between, you are going to see the fibrous septa. That is very important point to notice here. That fibrous septa, what they are going to have, they have lymphocytic infiltrate. Right. Here, I want to tell you one more important thing. That granuloma may be also present. Granuloma can be also present. So lymphocytic infiltrate and granuloma may be also present in the septa. Right. So that's what I have written here also. Right. So granuloma may be seen in the seminoma. Why I wanted to emphasize this point, granuloma may be seen, because that is why I was telling you, when you are going to see the spermatocytic seminoma, there will be no granuloma at all. Right. So there will be no granuloma in case of spermatocytic seminoma. That is why I wanted to tell you this point. Right. Granuloma will be seen in the seminoma, not into the spermatocytic seminoma, right? Now you can see this is the cross binding. So now you can see these are the well-capsulated area, right? These are the well-capsulated area, and now you can see the tumor mass is like this, right? Can you see these are the tumor mass, fleshy appearance, fleshy tumor mass. This is how we describe them. It's a fleshy tumor mass, and why it is bulging out? You can see fleshy and bulging out. Bulging out. Why it is bulging out? Because of fibrous septa. You can see there is a whitish area, thin whitish area is going through them. So these are all fibrous septa, right? So this is the cross binding of the seminoma. This is the cross binding of the seminoma, right? And when you are going to take the section, so can you see this? I have shown you. This is the capsule. These are the fleshy, bulging out tumor mass divided by thin fibrous septa. And when you take the section, you can see these are all sheets of the tumor cells. And these sheets of the tumor cells are divided by the fibrous septa. You cannot appreciate fibrous septa because they are all having infiltration by round mononuclear lymphocytic infiltrate, right? So can you see this round mononuclear infiltrate are there, right? So now you can see these are the sheets of tumor cell. Sheets of tumor cell. Sheets or nests of tumor cell, right? And when you are going to see the individual tumor cell, how are the tumor cell? Can you see the clear cytoplasm? Clear cytoplasm is due to glycogen. Due to glycogen. And you can see the nucleus is very prominent. And some of the nuclei, for example, here, you can notice there is a prominent nucleoli. Prominent nucleoli. Bigger nucleus, prominent nucleoli is present, right? And then you can notice there is a lymphocytic infiltrate. So all these things are, you can see these are all lymphocytic infiltrate, which are infiltrating the fibrous septa, right? So this is how you are going to see. So can you see the glandular pattern here? Are you seeing any glandular pattern here? Are you seeing any glandular pattern here? So there is no glandular pattern. So please remember, this is the exam question, right? What is not seen in the seminoma? So please remember, no gland pattern is seen. No gland is seen in seminoma, right? So there is no glandular pattern in the seminoma. That is the important thing we have to remember for the seminoma, right? So it's a sheets and nests of the tumor cells, right? Sheets and nests of the tumor cell. Individual tumor cells are having clear cytoplasm because of the glycogen, and with prominent nucleoli, septa, which is dividing these sheets or nests, they are having lymphocytic infiltrate and they may have granuloma also. So these are the important points you have to remember about the seminoma histological spectrum, right? What are the tumor markers? Already I have told you. Tumor markers, that molecular marker already I have told you. OCT, OCT4, nano-G, c-KIT, right? And this was the DNB question in previous year exam. OCT3, OCT4 is a tumor marker. GC is not visible. What GC is not visible? Giant cells are they are occasionally seen. They are not always seen. They are occasionally seen. Giant cells will be occasionally seen, not always. The granuloma or multinucleated giant cells are not always seen. Right there, but they are characteristic. When they are seen means it's a seminoma. Then that cannot be spermatocytic seminoma. That is the meaning of that differentiation, right? So LDH and PLAP. This was the question in NEET 2015. An examiner had given both the options. What is the best tumor marker or better tumor marker for the seminoma? So remember, LDH is superior to the PLAP, placental alkaline phosphatase. Right. So LDH is superior to the PLAP. Remember this. Both options will be given, and you have to choose one option. Then your answer will be LDH. If you have given nothing like which is simple question is which is the tumor marker, both will be right answer. Which is the best tumor marker or one tumor marker, you have to choose LDH will be the better one. Right. And if none of them is given and you have to choose another one, then you should remember beta HCG is also a tumor marker in 15% of the cases. So 15% of the seminoma, beta HCG is tumor marker because their origin means seminoma, 15% of seminoma, they originate from the syncytial trophoblastic cells. And that is the question in the NEET PG 2018 also. What is the source of beta HCG? What is the source of beta HCG? So remember, source of beta HCG is syncytial trophoblastic cell, right? And that is why they are positive for beta HCG. Like molecular marker, already I told you, OCT3, OCT4 was the question. So please remember nano-G because this was the option given in the PGI exam. So examiner can ask you this question because now ECET exam is clubbed with everything. So examiner can ask you. So what are the molecular markers? OCT3, OCT4, nano-G, c-KIT. So now understood these are all tumor markers for the seminomas, right? Coming to the spermatocytic seminoma, right? You remember, seminoma was 15 to 20 years of age, 15 to 40 years of age, right? But spermatocytic seminoma is different. 60 years plus will be affected. So plus remember, the spermatocytic seminoma are usually seen in which patient? In simple word, older patients beyond 60 years of the age. Understood? So this is the one difference. Seminoma was 15 to 40 years, younger patient, middle-aged patient. But spermatocytic is the older patient, more than 60 years plus. And what is the specialty? No metastasis. Good prognosis. And on microscopic examination, they will be having three types of the cells: small cells, medium cells, large cells. Right? Otherwise, there is no specificity. Right? They will be having all kinds. Examiner will be asking you a question. Seminoma was seen with a small, medium, large cell in a 60-year-old male. What is most likely diagnosis? So spermatocytic seminoma. Now, according to the WHO, they are not saying them spermatocytic seminoma. They are saying that it is a spermatocytic tumor. So that we should not get confused with the seminoma. Right? Microscopic examination, I have told you, there will be no granuloma seen in the spermatocytic tumor or the spermatocytic seminoma. Tumor markers are absent. So now you can see these are all important differences from the spermatocytic seminoma from the seminoma. Older, no metastasis, better prognosis, three types of the cells, no granuloma, and no tumor markers will be present in the spermatocytic tumor, choliocarcinoma, teratoma. So these are the four important tumors you have to remember in the non-seminomatous condition. So in the non-seminomatous condition, number one, which I want to tell you, is about the embryonal carcinoma. Right. So what is this? It's a non-seminomatous tumor. Right. So what is this? It's a malignant tumor. It's a very malignant tumor. Not a simple kind of malignant. It's a malignant tumor with very poor prognosis. And age group affected is 20 to 30 years. Right. This we need not remember. That mucoid cyst-like tumor. Mucoid cyst-like tumor, there are many tumors, but they are having hemorrhagic areas. That is important. Right. And they will be consisting of the primitive glandular pattern or maybe the solid form. See, these are not very specific findings. These are just finding to write down in your university exam when you have to fill up the pages. Right. Mucoid cysts are there. There will be areas of hemorrhages. So I'll just tell you, when I was writing my exam, second MBBS, right, one of my professor called me and he asked me, because in our senior used to tell like this, right? In university exam, if you do not understand, right, cystic areas, necrotic areas, areas of hemorrhage, areas of necrosis, right? So in one benign tumor we have written areas of necrosis, areas of hemorrhages. So our professor has asked, for every tumor you people have written necrosis, hemorrhage, why you have written? And we got passed also, right? She was very happy that we are knowing that there will be areas of hemorrhage and necrosis. But remember, right? So it's just I'm just making fun of those things, right? I remember those things where you might be also knowing, your senior might be suggesting, right? You can write this, all the tumors are having one idiopathy or pathology, you can write one cause is idiopathic. Like that, our senior also used to tell that. So same way I'm telling you, this is not that important, but this is important, which examiner will ask you, and here examiner will be very decisive and very firm. See, examiner, as an examiner, I know that how is the mind state of any examiner. When I'm your examiner, right? I'm your examiner, I'm asking you, tell me what is the gross finding of the embryonal carcinoma, and you said, sir, I don't know, sir.